Councilman Holland.
Let's pray. Oh, Father God, we stand before you on this night that you had made. Pray to ask for your leadership and your guidance on this meeting and your blessings and everybody that's here in attendance. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Please remain standing for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. Okay, are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, sir, there are not.
Okay, you've all received the minutes from our last meeting on the 26th. If there are no questions or comments, I'll accept the motion to receive those minutes.
So moved.
Motion from Councilman McCoy. Is there a second?
Councilman Hall, I second that
Okay,
motion.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, okay, it's unanimous. Okay, before we get started tonight, we do want to sort of celebrate and honor our electric utility for their awards. I'm going to invite Director Bennett and also Greg Brooks up for the presentation, but one is from DMEC, which is the co-op that we belong to with other towns on our electric. It's a certificate of excellence and reliability, and the second one is excellence and safety. And we also have one from the Public Power Association. Same thing, it's low incident rate, another exceptional award. So we want to invite Bill up in case he wants to say a couple words to celebrate these great awards, and then we want to certainly get photos with the stars.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Evening.
City Manager. The two awards we received, one from APPA for Safety Award for 2022. The Electric Department worked over 20,000 hours in 2022 with no on-the-job injuries or illnesses. So, you know, once again, that was a good year. They work safe. Greg Brook makes sure they work safe. He keeps on them. The other one was from DMEC for reliable power. 2022, there were, I think it was 34 outages. 35% of them were squirrels, 6% were birds, and 9% were trees. So if you just take those three, half of the outages were caused by those three things. 6% by a vehicle accident, and 6% was equipment. So it's an assortment of things, and that all comes from a report. When we have an outage, we fill out a paper, turn it into Jessica. She goes on APPA and fills it out, so we can download this and we get it. Well, you can do it at any time, but they give the awards out for the year. So
That's awesome. We're going to get a picture. Matt, would you come up and?
The selfie station.
Welcome aboard, bro.
Congratulations. Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you.
This past week was Public Power Week, and we did go out and celebrate with our guys and thanked all of them for the work they're doing, and we appreciate the invite. So, okay, next up we have public comment. Do we have anybody here tonight for public comment?
First one on the list is Dan Cannon.
Mr. Cannon, would you come on down?
After being born and raised in Seaford, my family and I moved into town over 30 years ago. It was long enough ago to remember that when the city asked its citizens via public vote about installing water meters, the answer was a resounding no. Now Burley Mears has raised the issue of water meters for all once again. His proposals would eventually require universal water meters for everyone in an unstated time frame, and universal water meters for all irrigation systems by next July 1st, less than a year away. The justifications for Mr. Mears' recommendations are extremely short on detail. For example, there are no cost estimates on the meter pit or meter installations for new and existing irrigation systems. Unfortunately, Mr. Mears cites but 2 examples of supposed current irrigation water usage with a huge range of both customer usage and cost. His proposals are not, but should be, intended to conserve limited water resources, but unfortunately, there's no mention of, 1, diverting treated wastewater now dumped into the Nanticoke for irrigation or other uses. 2, establishing rate structures to encourage conservation instead of rewarding more and more usage with lower rates. Limiting vast water usage on the Hooper's Landing golf facility. 4, encouraging or rewarding conversion of water-intensive landscaping to drier, more sustainable landscaping, and others. The underlying motivation for these proposals seems clear. Quote, "We are losing a lot of water and revenue," according to Mr. Mears. This is not surprising in a city with too many $100,000 salary and fringe benefit employees. Generating more income always seems to be a #1 priority. In addition, perhaps collection of water fees from all citizens is an attempt to relieve pressure on existing metered commercial business customers. Clearly, there needs to be much more precise information and thought about the impact of these proposed requirements on we the people, customers, before any action by mayor and city council. Mayor and city council should hold a public hearing to share information with the citizens, hear our opinions regarding the issue. Only then should there be a public vote to decide the issues as opposed to a rule by fiat. Please let us know when to expect a public hearing to be held. Thank you for your attention.
Do we have anyone else here for public comment?
We have one more on the list, Roxanne Knights.
Ms. Knight? Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Council and Mayor. I'm up here just briefly. I just want to bring to your attention one more time. We're still here in representation for the removal of the gate. We are nearing the end of our 90-day as per our conversation with you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to know if there's any updates or anything you'd like to meet with us concerning, and can you give us a date? That's 1. And 2, I'm really, really concerned, and our committee is concerned about the retainer ponds in the city of the Bel Air community. Current day, they are murky and very muddy. Seem to be harboring a whole bunch of bad growing weeds and stuff like that, and it's not really safe for the children that ride past and the older people who walk past and the animals that are there. I think you need to look into what's actually causing it, because at this current time it makes no sense as to how murky it looks. It was a clean, clear pond that the ducks used to come in, and as of recent, since the developers milking of the waters from their areas, we've been sustaining with the muddy, murky, dirty retainer pond, very unclean environment. You know, don't want you to forget us back there.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here for public comment? Okay. Okay, do we have any correspondence?
No, sir, we do not.
All right, at this time, we'd like to invite up Mr. Carson Hastings to go over our Hometown Heroes banners and success of that project and expansion.
Good evening. Sorry, just set up here. Good evening. I am Carson Hastings, here to speak to you tonight about the Hometown Heroes project, Phase 2. Last time I stood before you, I was in the 7th grade, and now as a 10th grader, I have gained a lot more experience about handling and just working, the inner workings of a project like this in general. And tonight I am here to show you the Phase 2 of our project. here's our Phase 1 review. Seaford Hometown Heroes is a project to honor our local veterans and those currently serving in our military branches. We currently have 36 banners, 72 people honored for those that have served or are currently serving in our military branches. All costs of the project were paid by fundraising. Applications were provided online for the City of Seaford website, paper copies available at City Hall, and electronic versions for emailing Seaford Hometown Heroes email. Next slide, please. And here we have what is currently Phase 1, currently, set up downtown. Next slide, please. And here is what we are proposing for Phase 2. We are proposing using Nylon Boulevard and sorry.
Oh my gosh.
We are, we have created a mock-up here of Nylon Boulevard, which we are planning to use for Phase 2 of the project. Currently, we have 72 poles available to use, 4 banners to a pole, 68 banners, and 336 heroes in general. Potential to use nylon/Stein as title location. Next slide, please. Tower Signs has created a mock-up example that I currently have here. With approximate total cost for an additional 23 double-sided banners to be $1,980,000. My gosh, $1,980. And we hope to honor 46 veterans or those currently serving in the armed forces. And our plans to raise funds, present at the Daughters of the American Revolution and Sons of the American Revolution chapter meetings throughout the state of Delaware and ask for donations, present to local organizations and veteran organizations to request donations. Pampered Chef fundraiser, City of Seaford will create an account for donations to be posited into. Next slide, please. And our proposal is an application process. Banners will be created on a first-come, first-served basis of completed applications turned in with verification by phone call or email. Only 1 nomination per applicant. The first 46 applications that have all information needed will have banners created in their honor. Applications can be emailed to seafordheroes@gmail.com or turned into the City Hall with verification of date and time turned in. Next slide. If approved, applications will be available October 16th, 2023. All applications will be turned in by December 1st, 2023, or until all 46 honorees are filled. Banners would be ready to be hung for Memorial Day 2024 along Nylon Boulevard in addition to the existing High Street banners. The potential future of this project, we plan to work with local state legislators to find funding for additional brackets, reprinting of H banners, and new banners to honor more veterans and current service members. And that is all.
Carson, I gotta compliment you. It's not easy to get up in front of a bunch of old people and speak, whether you're in 7th grade or 10th grade or an adult, and you do a great job presenting a project. You've done a great job raising the money to do this, to honor local people that have served our country. It's an admirable thing you're doing, and I just want to thank you for having the courage to do it and to come back again. We certainly have heard a lot of great responses on your banners downtown. People have loved them. I know I have enjoyed seeing people that I know today and seeing their younger selves up on a banner and knowing their service. So I appreciate the timeline and the organization you have around how quickly this is going to happen. You really have a short amount of time to do this, and we'll certainly do our part to help promote and support you to get that done. The only thing I would change in your presentation is you left out I saw state legislators, but you don't want to forget your county legislature, you know, because you got Mr. Vincent would certainly want to support you any way he can, so we'd love to get on him. Does anybody from council have any questions for Mr. Hastings? Yes, sir.
So a couple quick comments, Carson. I'm going to echo what the mayor is saying. Just overwhelming positive response from the city and the residents. And I think about that coming from a 7th grader when you originally brought this forward. I hope you realize it's been an amazing difference for the community and the city when those that are up there. The city responds wholeheartedly behind it. It's fascinating for me when my family and I go on a trip somewhere else, and we'll see the banners of other towns may do something similar, and it makes me very proud to know that our city does that. So, big kudos to you, man.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Henderson?
Thank you, Carson. Do you have anybody currently on the waiting list that didn't get a banner?
Yes, we do have a few people. I'm not sure on the exact number. Six.
So they're already on this waiting list. They're going to be front in line for this next 46.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Councilman Bradley?
I was one of the first in line for the last purchasing of those banners, and got one from my father. And I'm looking forward to getting one from my brother. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Hastings?
Just to
Yes, sir.
piggyback, Carson, you've done a fantastic job. I mean, somebody in the 7th grade to take on this project, this is a huge lift. And not only take it on, all the underlining things, the resources and the planning and fundraising, and just come in and say, look, I've got it all figured out. This is how we'd like to execute it, need some help and support. And someone at that age and that passion has just had a huge positive impact on our community. And to echo what the mayor said, just to look up, see family members, and a lot of times people that served in our military, they're not out there boasting about it, right? A lot of times they're very secretive or they don't want to discuss it. So I saw people up there, I had no idea what they did for our country. So just keep up the good work, and just thank you for all the energy and time that you've put into this project.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
This will be next, bud. I just want to give you kudos for starting this project and following up and finishing through, because most kids your age, we done dropped off by now. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah.
You're doing a good job. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good job.
Okay, if there's no other, if there are no other questions or comments, I'll accept a motion.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Holland, I make the motion to approve the request for Carson Hastings for Phase 2 of the Hometown Heroes Banner Project to be located on Nylon Boulevard as presented.
Okay, we have
Thank
a
you, sir.
motion from Councilman Holland. Is there a second?
There's a second from me.
Okay.
Councilman Bradley.
Okay, all in favor with a mighty aye? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Carson, thank you so much, and we'll certainly do our best to help promote this. We'll get it out with the Minute with the Mayor and everything we can on our publications and whatever we can do to help support. Of course, we'll be working side by side through, so great. Thank you for coming tonight.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you.
Awesome job.
Have a good evening.
All right, next I'm going to call up Director Mears. He's got a tough act to follow.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. You got a tough
Yep.
act to follow.
I hope to do as well as Carson did. Hold my composure. As you all know, I presented a recommendation that included two recommendations, actually. One for starting to meter residential properties, and then the second recommendation is to start to meter residential irrigations. So basically, I'll break it down. What I'm asking for right now is to start metering, installing and metering neighborhoods or developments that have been put in over the last 15 years or so, and future developments that have meter pits installed. So the entire development would have a meter pit that we could put a meter in. So we're going to be metering the entire neighborhood. We have to move towards metering. I'm told by the state that we're the last municipality in the state that doesn't meter the residential water meters, or doesn't meter their entire water system. So when I do end of year reports, consumption reports, when I do what the wells pumped versus what we sold and where it went, I don't know. So the state doesn't really like that because the state wants to know where your water went, who's using your water, is it being conserved? Are we just giving it away? What are we repairing leaks on time? What are we doing? How do we maintain our water system? So to do that truly, we need to have all services metered. So, you all know we don't do the residential. So this is a step. This is step phase 1, something. We have to do something. I feel like we have to do something to start metering the residential side of our water business. So the easiest low-hanging fruit, if you will, is the ones that already have meter pits in these bigger developments. We would start to install water meters. In the future developments that are being proposed, we have a couple on the books now that are 160, 180 homes that are being proposed. I am requesting or recommending that we have the developer pay those fees to purchase the meters. They're already purchasing the pits and installing the pits. I would like to have them put the meter in as well. That way the cost of these new developments are not a burden to the current customers, thank you. So this way, that they would pay for them to put them in, we would then start billing them. There's also some phases going in, like a Muirfield, say, the same one that was in here the other week, asking for some forgiveness. They're putting in meter pits for the residential home, for their potable water, but they're also putting in irrigations for every one of these properties. So we know that residential irrigation is using 2, 3, 4 times the EDUs allowed a month. So I'm requesting that we put in meters so we can start charging them. We have a duty to supply potable drinking water. It's a right. It's everybody's right. If you want to irrigate your lawn, that's something else, in my opinion. So I think there's something to be said that we have a right to charge for that water if you want to have green grass. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Have any questions?
Director Mears, just so, again, I don't want anybody to be confused. I don't want to be confused. So this is really new developments that are already required to have meter pits already. This would not be existing homes that are already in place today that have built in 1970 or 80 or before that. These are new homes.
Yeah, these are new homes that have been built over the past 10, maybe 15 years. Some of the like a Governor's Grand, like a Bel Air, like a Muirfield, Phase 1, all those.
That already have meter pits installed.
Yes, they were.
There was a time the city required those who wanted irrigation, and say you lived in a home that was built in the 50s, but you put in irrigation. There was a time the city required those folks put in meter pits, but no meters for irrigation. Would we now ask them to put in meters for that irrigation?
Yes. So yes. So if we go out and we know, and I have a list of them from building permits where they were put in, and I have some other lists of some known irrigations. So if there's a residential property in town now, say the old part of town, and we know you have irrigation, we would ask you to put in a meter pit because at some point we need to collect the data, in the consumption, track the consumption that's being used for the irrigation. We wouldn't require you, to put a meter pit in or in a meter for your home, but just the irrigation.
And do we have an idea of the cost?
Yeah. So the meter pits, depending on what size you need and different things, they could be, I think they're $630. Don't quote me on that. It's all on our fee and rate schedule, so it's public knowledge. We can get that to anybody that wants it.
Okay. Questions from council? Councilman King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Burley. I know we talked a lot today in depth in our liaison meeting. I've got a couple emails from residents in the community, constituents with some concerns. I just want to make sure that we're crystal clear. I know I did some work on one of my rentals years ago, and I was required, the city required me to put in a pit, right? I don't have irrigation. So the pit that I put in wasn't for irrigation, it was for monitoring residential water. And this is an older home. This home was built way back, 50s, 60s.
Right.
So I guess my question is, looking at this proposed recommendation where we're saying new homes within the last 15 years, right? So anything that was built 15 years ago that already has this in place, new developments coming into the area, it would be a requirement if this passed. You talked about people that are running irrigation, they would be required to put this in also, right? So let's talk about, as the situation that I alluded to, the residential rental that I had that I put in a pit. The city required me to put in a pit.
Mm-hmm.
So what does the long-term strategic planning look like as far as metering residential water?
So at some point, I'm gonna come back up here and I'm gonna ask you for phase 2. If this does get passed, I'll call it phase 2, but, at some point, we need to start metering those. So I would say those would be the next ones that we can easily meter. We would supply the meter, it'd be no cost to the residents that already have the pits. You've already purchased the pit, you've already installed the pit, so the city would then supply the meter, put the meter in those pits. Then
Right.
after that, we would probably work towards a phase 3, where we need to go out to some big, some capital project where we get a contractor and we then meter everybody.
Right, so let's talk a little bit about that. I know that's putting the horse before the cart, but I just want to make clear, because this is first steps into this potential. At the end of the day, every residential, commercial resident within the city of Seaford is going to have metered water.
Hopefully.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about phase 2 and phase 3. So if I have a pit, again, is it all right if I use it as an example? Let's say, like, once again, that the property that I renovated, I have a pit. Mr. McCoy doesn't have a pit. So I have one because I pulled permits. It was issued, so you can go back and look at the history, saying, okay, hey, he's got a pit. Let's go ahead and put in the meter, turn it on, start monitoring the water. Mr. McCoy doesn't have one. Let's say Mr. McCoy never has to have any work done to his residents around water, right? So there's never a need to go in and put in a pit.
Right.
So you're going to have people in the community, a certain percentage of people in the community, potentially that could be paying metered water, right? And you're going to have a percent of the people in the community that aren't paying it and potentially could maybe never pay it, right?
Well, that would be your call. If I came back for a phase 3 or 2 or 3, and I asked, for a capital project and we can get the funding, then it would be up to you guys to say, yeah, we want to proceed with it.
Okay. Now, do we have numbers around phase 2, phase 3, or are we just kind of taking it?
We had some older numbers from when we tried to do this before, but they would have to be updated.
Okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Other questions?
I have
Yes, sir.
a question. I generally understand the need the need for measurement, because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So, but what does concern me is the timeline. I think, if you got just having a couple test meters in and figuring out what your consumption is doesn't give you a large body of data to analyze. I would be much more in favor of stretching this timeline out so that you could actually do some measurement and get data that would justify your numbers. Starting billing on July 1, which is convenient because it's the start of the fiscal year, sounds pretty pretty aggressive. Even, you know, it's mid-October, and you got to get them in, and then you got to have several months. And even with several months, you're not in irrigation season, really, after you start getting them in the winter. You're not going to have a terrible lot of data. That's my only concern. I'm generally in favor of starting it this way for the existing, or for future homes and the existing homes that have pits. But I'm concerned about the timeline.
So I have 1 meter installed in Muirfield, 1 installed in Governor's Grant, and 1 installed on Locust Street for about 10 years now. So I have 10 years of data for 3 homes that have residential irrigation. I can share that with you if you'd like, but that's kind of where I came up with the average I stuck in here. And yeah, it was a broad range because, you know, 10 years of data, and it depends how hot the season is and different things, the numbers change. So I do have some data for those.
Director Mears, do we know how many pits we have out there now that would be impacted by this?
I do not have a total number now, not with me.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question too. Thank you. So, Burley, and I agree with Vice Mayor Henderson. I think data is important. I mean, it has to be measured, right? I mean, if you got somebody that's running an irrigation, someone filling a swimming pool, and you got somebody, your neighbors is just washing a car, I mean, yeah, the scales are completely unbalanced. But also, I think with something that could be, you know, I think education is important too, right? So if I'm a resident that's on a fixed income, and let's say I don't have the best plumbing in the world, right? And I don't know that, right? And then I'm one of the ones that have the meter pit, and then all of a sudden I go from a water bill. What's a typical water bill a month?
$25.
Okay, right, and then all of a sudden I've got some leaky faucets or got a pipe that's leaking that I'm not aware of, and then all of a sudden I've got a water bill for $500. So, right, I mean, it could happen.
But that's what we want. I mean, we don't want the revenue. I'm not saying we want the $500 bill. We
Right.
want you to know you have a leak.
Right,
so you can
right,
fix it.
but they still gotta pay it though.
Yeah, but all that time it's been leaking, and
No,
it's been a
but-
stress on our system.
Right, no, and I get that, but I'm saying the educational aspect of
Oh,
it,
yeah.
the open, coming and doing a public forum or having people come in, as an elected official, believe me, you know, people elect me for a reason, I'm gonna vote what I think best suits our community, but I think just some, you know, I think me personally, we're missing that educational aspect of it, coming in and kind of if people have questions and want to get answers to really understand that what we're doing, I mean, this is to me, is a huge move. And it potentially could have a huge impact financially on people, and they may not even realize it. So
Yeah,
that's
just a suggestion, maybe to play off of what both councilmen are talking about. You know, Burley, Mr. Mears has been working on this for quite some time. The group that he's starting with are relatively new homes. So we would hope there would not be a lot of leaks. We would certainly want to identify those if there were. Just a suggestion in listening to the conversation. We are not wed at all to, you know, July 1, 2024. If council's pleasure is maybe we build a year of data with these new meters that are installed in these new developments, what we can do is review that billing database. We don't have to turn on the multiple billings, but we can put a variance on the database that shows people that are using very high amounts of water. And we can send them letters and say, if we were billing this would be your bill today because you have a leak. And we will start billing at some point if that's 2025. And, you know, we encourage you to address this now, or some simple things Mr. Mears and I talked about. You know, a lot of irrigation systems, if you don't meter and bill the water, they don't put on rain sensors. So it defies logic when I go by an irrigation system and it's raining and it's running. You know, it's like, what are we doing? You know, we're treating this water and then we're just putting it out there. Looking at your zones, fixing leaks in irrigation is huge, you know, and we pay to treat that water. So the conversation changes and it really does become about conservation and things like that. As we move through phase 1, phase 2, and potentially phase 3, I think the big difference maker here is just what you talked about, Councilman King. When the person next door to you does not use the same amount of water, then if you are using a larger amount of water, a lot more of the cost to carry the system can go to you. and not your neighbor. And so we'll pay your neighbor for conserving. They'll have a much lower water bill. So right now, you're paying exactly the same thing, whether you let it run all day or not. And we can't get to that point where it's more equitable until we get more meters in the system, almost completely metered. It's gonna be hard to get phase 3 done, very hard. Going into our existing neighborhoods, I mean, Councilman Henderson's been a plumber for 35 years. He can speak to this much better than I can.
43.
Sorry, sir. Sorry. But going into these existing neighborhoods is, by design, is gonna be a long-term
But I guess my
proposition.
concern is if I'm living in phase 1 or 2, right, and I'm paying metered water, and then he lives in phase 3, that we may not ever get to, or it could take us a tremendous amount of time to get to that. See what I'm saying? So the community, see what I'm saying, is kind of unbalanced, and.
But they're
So,
gonna
right
buy into that knowing that, right?
and
It's
right
not gonna
now-
be a shock.
And right now, you're already doing it, okay? Apartments are largely metered already, okay? It's because as they've turned over and everything, we've put them, they're basically to us a commercial meter. So what happens there is, we're seeing consumptions that are much lower than 7,500 gallons per month. You know, we're seeing, help me, Mr. Mears, 3,000 a month.
Yeah, 3 to 5.
Is average. We see that one pop up, 5, 7, 12,000, something's wrong. It's a toilet leak and something like that. The vast majority of these apartments are not a problem. They are well below what we design or what we put in our tariff as a minimum bill. And that's truly where we need to get to, so we can reduce that minimum bill down. And, you know, that person that only uses the minimum, bare minimum, you know, that single person living by themselves, you know, I'd like to see their water bill go down to $20, you know, if we could ever get there.
Councilman Bradley?
Sort of a sidebar here, but it might answer your question a little bit. Okay. When I turned 65, I applied to the county for a reduced tax rate, okay? We had an influx of out-of-staters coming into the state of Delaware, building a new house, and then immediately applying for a reduction because they were 65. State's got a 10-year cap on it now. You have to live in the state for 10 years before you can.
Yeah, but that was back when you guys were using hand pumps, right?
More than hand pumps, buddy. Yeah,
Wow.
I'll share more of that with you later.
Listen, I've not been a huge fan of water meters, but everything we use today is measured, whether it's gas, oil, electric, none of it is a flat rate. Seaford has the lowest water rate, I'm guessing, in the state. We have a great deal on our water rate. I love it. But at some point, if we do not make these changes, we're going to be so far behind, and that lift is going to be huge. I think this is a great first step, is to work with these new developments so it's already in the workup when you buy your home. It's not impacting our existing residents. So I know Director Mears has been working on this several times. We've tried, and so I appreciate you continuing to do it. And now with the development that's happening in our town, it's a great thing, but now's the time to really bring it forward.
And then, Mr. Mayor, I promise, last thing, you know, and I appreciate your due diligence, I really do. I just want to make sure it's crystal clear when people,
Sure.
you know, people are asking us, we're all on the same page. But, so as a typical, as an investor, right, you just talked about the last council meeting, we had an investor come in and ask for support, right? He wanted impact fees waived. So if this is a requirement, right, I mean, I can see this as a requirement for potential investors into our community, and the first thing they're gonna say is, hey, and not only can you waive our fee, our connection fee, can you also waive the fee of the water meters? So what would a typical, I'm just asking,
So,
a water pit meter,
I've learned never say never around here, but like right now, no one has ever asked in any development that's been made.
But we're not metering, right?
No, but we're installing pits.
Right.
We're requiring them to purchase pits. That's part of their water infrastructure that they're putting in, and then they dedicate it back to us. None so far have asked for forgiveness on this.
I think
Just saying it
that's,
could get costly.
I believe that's
anything could
partly
happen.
because where they're developing, it's a requirement everywhere, except here,
But then you
right?
gotta put the meter in.
And where the negotiation is on the connection fee everywhere too, so, okay. Councilman Henderson.
Do I understand it correctly that the city is going to provide the meter
Yes.
free of charge?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Let's verify that. You're going to require builders who are installing new ones to pay for that.
Correct.
Where you're
For-
talking about is existing irrigation
Yes,
systems.
yes.
existing
Thank you.
irrigation?
Yep.
Okay,
No, existing,
existing
Pits.
pits,
existing pits, yes.
Thank
Right.
Yeah.
okay.
But
So-
any new phases that are currently being built or any new developments that are proposed to be built, they would be purchased by the developer.
All right, so, I just want to wrap my head around this. I would be prepared to move, to offer a motion, but it would be altered. That you would start measuring for data by July 1, 2024. And have it come back again for a start date for billing. I want to see much more data so that customers can expect what they're going to have to pay. If you can come up with raw data and say a properly operating system of one ADU is, we grant you 7,500 gallons and maybe you're using 5,000, the bill should potentially go down, or it should be revenue neutral. We're not, because the purpose in my mind is to conserve the resource and not actually be a revenue gainer.
Right.
It should be a revenue, we should be managing our revenue and cutting our cost of operation of the system because we're not losing. Our cost, kilowatts for pumps would go down. It should reduce over time if we start managing and we start educating the customer on, hey, no, you know, maybe I don't need 30,000 gallons a month to irrigate a lawn. Maybe I can manage it a little bit better and get by with 10 or something else because.
Well, that's an interesting point, and if you think about this, you know, over the next year, let's just use that time horizon, we're probably gonna build 60, 70, 80, 100 top units. So
Right.
we'll have 100 meters out there deployed with some range of data collected.
I'm much more comfortable with 100 or 200 meters than I am with 3 or 4.
Understood.
What kind of time frame do you need to pull the data together? Do you need 6 months? Do
Well,
you
I think we
need?
would do well to feed it back to smart utility management
Okay,
and have them do an analysis of that database just for what you're talking about. Because one of the things we could potentially do, if we have enough information, we might be able to incentivize people to say,
Reduce.
I want these meters now. Because if we wind up with two rates, a metered rate, because we know you're gonna be here or there, versus a flat rate, and your rate is, you know, 20% lower, some people may opt to take that rate. If we can get enough information to be sure, we're gonna be able to cover our costs with these two tiers of rates.
So
let's get the timeline in there, because that should be part of the motion. So do you think a full year is what is needed for data collection?
I mean, what I heard Councilman Henderson say was, come back at a future time. He didn't really pin it down. I used a year, but.
for good housekeeping, I would say the start of the next fiscal year, not this one, but at least we're starting to measure. And we get, you know, 2 full watering seasons in, a spring and a fall, to measure. And then, you know, like to Councilman King's point, you got a house, you got a very conscientious person who had their water service replaced and they had to put a pit in. So you can meter that. The next door has a lead cinch water system that's been there since 1950s, and it leaks a gallon a minute of water in the yard, underground, or through a toilet, and that's 43,000 gallons a month, just 1 gallon a minute. So you go from, you know, that's 6 houses.
Right, you go for $25 a month
Right.
to,
That's 6 EDUs almost,
Exactly.
over 5 anyway. So, so you're, if you go install a meter in there, they're gonna understand very, very quickly that they're gonna have a huge water bill. So, we need to have some way of measuring, some way of getting this calculated out so that the residents and the 1,800 or so landlords understand this. Because there's 1,800 units, isn't it 1,800 some?
Sounds like a good number.
So, but a lot of those are commercial units, they're not all single-family homes, but there's a significant portion of them, let's call it half of them, are houses, maybe, a big percentage. And that's a lot of potential water because they're not attending to their house. The people that live there let the water run, so it's not measured. So I understand the importance of measuring, but I would like to understand fully, or not, as fully as I can, the impact to the ratepayers that, as it will come up.
Well, if there are no other questions, then I will accept the motion.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the recommendation of Director of Public Works Burley Mears to require all new residential developments and/or construction to install meters beginning November 1, 2023 on the irrigation and domestic water services and to begin measuring these meters as of July 1, 2024. Billing to be determined.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Henderson. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Councilman King seconds. Are there any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Bradley?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Thank you.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Burley.
Thank you, Director Mears. All right, next we have the agreement with Chesapeake Conservancy that's been revised.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You have before you this evening in your packet an agreement between the City of Seaford and the Chesapeake Conservancy. The Conservancy has agreed to front the money, to pay upfront the cost of doing a master plan revision to the Oyster House Park. As you know, we have the interceptor sewer that runs through there. We need to do some alignment, which means ultimately portions of that master plan as we know it today do need to change. And since that is a living, breathing document, we need to make sure that it is concise with what we're planning to do. So we have worked with the Conservancy back and forth and come up with an agreement whereby we would pay for the bills and then they would reimburse the city. We just need to enter into that agreement. The city is hopeful to get these funds back out of a ORPT grant, but we won't know if we will receive that until the end of the year. So if we waited until then, it would prolong our ability to do anything towards the sewer, or towards the master plan project at that time. So in working with them, they have agreed to this, and we just need council's approval to do that.
All right, any questions for Director Newcomer? If not, I'll accept the motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve the agreement with the Chesapeake Conservatory to revise and update the master plan for the Oyster House Park located at 201 South Kennedy Street as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right. Do we have any old business?
No, sir, we do not.
A reminder of meetings.
Just one this time. Seaford Community Night Out is at the Seaford Police Department, 300 Virginia Avenue, from 5 to 7. That's this Thursday, October 12th. That's all I have, sir.
Okay, so Police Night Out is a public meeting. All are invited to come. So I hope to see you ladies there. Seaford Night Out. It's great food, it's good stuff. Great to see our officers. Okay, all right, we will go to committee reports, start with Code, Parks and Rec with Councilman Bradley.
Mr. Mayor, City Manager Anderson, fellow councilman, Tricia, and guests. First of all, I want to recognize two people in here. Those two gentlemen right back there in that corner that endlessly go out and pick up garbage. And I see you out there every single day. I know, Chris, I think you started doing it pre-birth. I think you need a token of gratitude for what you do. Because, I mean, I saw him Sunday, he'd been driving all day, and there he goes flying by. Last night, he goes flying by the garage when I'm coming home from work. Pardon me? No. Walking.
He's a
With
speed
his,
walker.
with his, no. That's a whole nother story. So, anyhow, at the meeting this morning, I spoke to Mike from Code Enforcement, and of course the season is winding down by God on grass lawn care. Okay, so that's all going to end very soon for the ones that are not quite as diligent as others. Muirfield applied for their 17th building permit today, so things are progressing well in that direction, and Bel Air is completing their 10th construction and ready to start utilities for the next phase. Katie from Parks and Recs is out of the country on vacation, and let's hope she has a great time and makes it back safely. And that is the end of my report. Respectfully submitted, Mike Bradley.
Thank you so much. All right, well, Police and Fire, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two complete reports from both Chief Wilson and Chief Kraft. Under basic fire statistics, there was a total of 829 calls for 2023 for an average of 2.9 per day. So far in October, there's 32 calls for an average of 3.4 calls per day. In EMS, there's 3,167 calls for the total in 2023 for an average of 11.2 per day, and 78 calls so far in October for an average of 8.6 calls per day. You'll see in the chart there the other statistics, the in-city, out-of-city, and the assists totaling 805 total calls in the fire department, and then 1860, 1099, and 133 in the assists respectively, for a total of 3,089 calls. Significant incidents on the 27th of September. There was a assist for Station 6, Hurlock, for a working building fire. Apparently that was two rounds, two fires there on one day. On the same day, on the 27th, there was a fire in an air conditioning unit at Meadowwood Court. There was a cooking fire on the 30th of September at 712 Clementine Court. And on October 1st, a working barn fire where they assisted Bridgeville on Baker Road. They also assisted Greenwood on the 9th, Station 78 on Utica Road for a work instruction fire. Apparatus, the E87-2 or engine 87-2 is out of service still at Chambers for a new transmission. Engine 87-5 is still out of service at the station with alternator issues, and it's due to be replaced very soon. They're still borrowing engine 71-9 in our station.
Engine 87-5 will back service tonight.
Okay, so all that is moot. We have a working engine 87-5 now, so assume that 71-9's been returned. Okay.
They can have it whenever they want.
All right. So we're still in custody of Blade's engine, and we're very thankful for the use of it. You'll see fuel usage there for the total cost of fuel and the gross cost and net cost. It was used 38 times for a total net cost of $3,644.62. The last training was on September 4th. It was Delaware State Fire School Water Rescue 1, Part 2, and that was conducted at Station 71. 12 members attended. On that same day, they also had a low-angle rope rescue and Stokes basket training at Station 87, where 10 members attended. I was intrigued by low-angle rescue and Stokes basket training, so I YouTubed it today, and it was about a half an hour long YouTube video, and I found it very fascinating. It's very technical work, very difficult.
I'll put you in for training hours.
Yeah. And kudos to these folks who actually train on this and retain it, because it is it's a highly technical rescue. So we don't have a lot of hilly terrain, but low-angle rescue can be used on hills and grades and stuff like that. But it's still the attention that's paid to that type of training is tremendous. The next training will be on Wednesday, October 19th at Station 71, where they'll do Delaware State Fire School Water Rescue Block 2. And below in the report, you'll see a graph of all the training hours and the number of people who committed to training, and the total man hours was just shy of 2,000 man hours for training for the year. In EMS, ambulance B87 is scheduled for general maintenance tomorrow. There's still one open full-time position available. The ALS and the BLS leadership meeting with Sussex County EMS was held on September 26th. The paramedics will be carrying, there's I guess a new policy on carrying narcotics, so it's more secured, so they've done some training on that. Career staff is working on defensive driving training online. There's EMT refresher courses coming up on later in this week and then later in the month. And in September 2023, 64 hours of EMT students riding along with patient contacts. So the students are from the Delaware State Fire School EMT class, and you might remember that last meeting I talked about this, and this is an excellent opportunity to get contact with these students and possibly use it passively or maybe actively as a recruiting tool to retain some of these students. Under news and events, this is Fire Prevention Month, so you can see that October 2nd, October 4th, 5th, and 9th, they were all over the place, the different schools. They visited Play, Learn, and Discover at the Jay's Nest, the St. John's Preschool twice, and then they visited the new preschool there at Precious Memories at Stein Highway Church of God. They're really thankful for all the volunteers and all the people that show up to do this for the kids. And under events, Ladder 87, Flag Detail, and the EMS Standby was at Seaford High School Homecoming. And you got to see a win. Great. Thanks to Tricia Newcomer for helping the department with getting a PSA for the Fire Prevention Month at the Kiwanis Park Electronics Board.
That's what we're told to say.
Very, yeah. So, I'm not keenly aware of the progress for the generator project, but it is underway. Can you give a quick?
Director Mears is our project manager.
Sure.
She said it looks like a mess back there, and it is.
It started like yesterday or
They
today?
did, they moved the current transfer switch over. They removed the existing generator that we're replacing from the site. So they're now starting to take down some other panels, and then they'll start busting out that concrete that's there to be able to pour a pad. The pad will have to sit there for 28 days to cure, and then they can set the new generator. So it's well underway.
And if you know anybody who wants an old generator, we're gonna put
We're
it
gonna
out
put out a
for
bid, yeah.
bid, yeah.
So, will that be advertised in a publication or just on the Seaford website?
No, in publication.
So we'll look for that. Thank you very much, Burley and Chief. Moving on to Seaford Police Department, you'll see the columns there from 2019 to current. In this period, there were 107 crimes reported, 8 felony, 28 misdemeanors, 3 violations, and 68 classified as other. The closure, or the clearance rate is inching back up. It's at 77%. You might have noticed that it went down over a period of time, but it historically has been up in the mid-80s, mid to high 80s for clearance rate. And that can be because of pending active and pending inactive investigations, and then as they get closed out, the clearance rate will go higher. There were, in additional crime data, there were 13 complaints consisting of assault, burglary, fraud, larceny, motor stalking, vehicle theft, and weapons. And you'll see the distribution there. Some are pending, active, some are pending inactive. There were 4 drug crimes with 4 adult arrests. 1 search warrant was served at Motel 6. The department also responded to 2 overdoses during this time, and that does not include EMS calls. This is just the police department responding to calls. I don't have any particular data on the EMS responses for overdose. Under traffic, there were 124 traffic contacts, 38 citations and 8 warnings, 2 DUIs, 1 alcohol and 1 drug related, and 1 was crash related. There were 27 crashes, none fatal, 2 injury accidents, 11 reportable, or 11 non-reportable, and 14 reportable. There were 3 hit and runs, 2 on private property and 1 on 4th Street. And the chief did alert that motorcycle and scooter accidents are on the rise in Seaford and across the state and county as well. You may have noticed in the news that there's been a couple of fatal motorcycle accidents, some scooter accidents. A family member of mine was involved in a scooter accident in Rehoboth week 10 days ago. So they are on the rise. And there's a number of significant events that the chief included us on. But I will say that there was an update at the top of the list. I did report in the last report that on September 12th, Seaford PD investigated an incident of indecent exposure at Rural Farms. So the suspect has been identified and he's been apprehended, and he was arrested in Laurel and turned over to the Seaford Police Department. So he was arrested and arraigned, and then he was released on unsecured bond. So that's one of the cleared occurrences. So
Was it Laurel or Delmar?
he was apprehended in Laurel.
Okay.
Yeah, it started with me on the chicken out in front of
Yeah.
Raw Farm.
Okay. So, I will allow you to review the other significant events. police department the admin was busy with meetings, and we can report that I have lost the one thing I wanted to mention. Under training, we want to congratulate Detective James for completing his Delaware State Police SQUAT School successfully. He's graduated, or I don't know if there was a ceremony, but he got through it successfully, and so we want to congratulate him on that achievement when you encounter him. I'll end it with, on the 17th, which is next week, the fall firearms shoot and makeup date will occur. So those guys are going to do target practice. We spend a lot of money on ammo, and that's what it goes to.
Amen.
That concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. Next, Administration IT, Councilman Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Meeting was held with Seaford Volunteer Fire Department regarding planned power outage during relocation of the generator, which Director Brillamill just spoke on. And they met with representatives of NVR Homes to discuss sprinkler requirements in homes. And the meeting was held with Chesapeake Conservancy to discuss Orchard House Park and Pavilion costs, which we spoke on tonight. And they attended various other meetings and events, and all the work is routine. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have Electric, Councilman McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the last report, the crew have responded to an outage on 3rd Street. A crane at the American Legion hit the primary wires. Luckily, there were no injuries. Tyler Sewell completed week 6 of 8 in his lineman training. And they had breakfast last week for the Public Power Week. They also set a new pole on Pennsylvania Avenue to feed a new house. Regarding our director, he had his standard director's meeting, staff liaison meeting, council liaison meeting, and worked on the estimation for Muirfield 1 Phase 4. He also attended this SCAT meeting. Over the course of the upcoming weeks, we're going to continue working in Bel Air single-family residence section, continue changing the lights on Sussex Highway to LED, and continue working in Muirfield 1 Phase 3. And Mr. Barron has been report submitted in entirety.
Do you have a picture you need to?
Oh, yes.
And we discussed this.
We did talk about this already. Yes, as you can see, our linemen hard at work. How do you describe this? What kind of flags they have in their hands? But yeah.
Which pole is Director Bennett?
So Director Bennett is on the ground with the city manager. This was the joint line worker training yard up in Smyrna that DMEC has built on our behalf. And our new linemen that go through training are going to go to this location. So where they used to have to go to Richmond, spend the week there, they're now going to be able to do that at about a third of the rate, Mr. Bennett? Is that? And they get to be home every night. So if we need them, they can come home. You'll see that's all the members of DMEC, and Mr. Hignut is on the pole for us there holding our flag. I was informed that Mr. Hignut, he can climb the poles very well, and Director Bennett at one point was able to do that. I don't have any proof of that, but it was a great event.
All hearsay.
All
It's all
hearsay.
hearsay.
That's great. It's awesome. Matt, did you want to discuss this chart?
I must say, I don't believe that's
Mr.
mine.
Bennett,
Yeah.
Director Bennett touched on that. I do think it is interesting. We wanted to include it. Squirrels are, I can't read it from here, 56% of the outages, you said, Mr. Bennett?
Squirrels alone were 36%.
36. So you can see most of your outages there are caused by birds, squirrels, things like that. Equipment failure at about 6% is a really good, that shows how robust and well-maintained system that our men and women maintain for our residents. So
Would you like to get the squirrel community together at the firehouse for a meeting?
they can come for public
Squirrel community.
It's a whole colony at my house.
Squirrel community.
Okay,
You better save us.
thank you very much. Next, we'll have Public Works, wastewater treatment, Councilman King.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I tell you, it's rough getting old, man. So I'm gonna start with the Public Works Department. The report has been submitted in its entirety. I'm just gonna hit some of the highlights. Starting with Public Works, the Seaford Village Lift Station project is underway. The team has installed stop bars in Bel Air. The last water tap was installed for new homes on Pennsylvania Avenue. Vice Mayor Henderson will be very excited about this one. The fire hydrant was replaced on Liberty Street. The team has been busy fixing service leaks within our city, the Catholic Church and Nanticoke Acre, just to name a few. Some of the upcoming projects over the next few weeks, work continues with installing new water services on Shipley. Work continues on replacing fire hydrants. And then, of course, as always, keep the plant up and running with 0 violations. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. I do want to thank Team Seaford and all of our crew and the Seaford Historical Society for allowing us to show off our town at SCAT. It was a great event. Appreciate all the help that went into that. Appreciate the employees that showed up and our elected that showed up. Appreciate that so much. And with that, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion from Councilman McCoy. Is there a second?
I second. Oh,
Good.
second and third.
Thought maybe everybody wanted to sit here.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, thank you. Good night.